This is not going to be an easy segment to record as the Longhorns are currently 20.5-point underdogs against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And yes, we're still previewing this. Yes, we're still giving predictions. And yes, I'll have to fight through, grit my teeth as I'm sitting across or around or in the vicinity of Longhorns haters, Kyle Ledbetter and James, really hard name to pronounce that I won't even try. But anyway, guys, Longhorns welcome in the Crimson Tide. Alabama just had a 55-point victory against Utah State. The Longhorns had a good opening game for what it's worth against ULM. Neither one of these two teams were really tested in week one. Alabama, you already know what you're getting. You're getting St. Nick. You're getting Bryce Young. You're getting Will Anderson. You're getting 5-star players up and down the defense and offense. This is going to be the game that Steve Sarkisian wanted. James, what's your early read on this game?
It's not good for you, I'll tell you, off the gun. And I know that goes with what everybody else is saying. I get that Sark is going to put this high-powered offense out there, but man, top to bottom, this Bama squad is just different. Like I can see this squad being a straight undefeated run. I have that much faith in just Will Anderson alone. What Bryce Young is doing too on the other side, it's just disgusting. It's disturbing. Maybe not with the same level of receiver firepower they've had in recent years, but it's still a really good squad. Spoiler.
First of all, I'd like to point out that the branding of Longhorns hater is just someone who shows the slightest bit of antagonistic zeal towards your team, because it's easy to pick on the Longhorns when Texas does it to themselves. They're these teams that have high expectations, but the performance doesn't meet it. Kind of like Chicago Bears fans, where it's really easy to kind of poke them a little bit. But you're at least a better Texas Longhorn fan than most that I have encountered, I would say. So in terms of the game itself, like we talked about last week with Oregon and Georgia, and like we talked about with Ohio State, Notre Dame, although Notre Dame did hold their own for about 3 quarters, changing the measuring stick is the most important for this one. This is not about whether Texas is going to pull off the upset and beat Alabama. There's a 1% chance that that's going to happen under any circumstance. So what this is for Texas is, what does the first 2 quarters look like? What does your first drive of the game look like? What happens, say, if you go up 3-0? What does your defense look like? The little things like that will be ways to evaluate not necessarily the state of the program itself, but just how this thing is coming along, how this team reacts. They know they're going into this game set up to lose, and that's totally okay. Obviously, they're not thinking that in their head, but just changing the measuring stick will make it a more enjoyable experience, because otherwise it's just going to be a frustrating cycle of recognizing that you are not Bama and you will never be Bama, because no one in the history of college football has, and quite possibly never again will be, what Alabama has been over the last decade.
How good is Quinn Ewers going to be, and how good is he really? Obviously, he started off last week with an opening drive pick. That is something that you just can't afford against this Alabama team. You can't have mistakes. They're going to force you into mistakes as is. Just don't give them any freebies. For Ewers, this is only his second start in 2 years. So I expect this to be a struggle. This is going to be a hard time. Again, you have Will Anderson. You have that defensive line coming at you. They're just going to make it a difficult day. Outside of Xavier Worthy, I'm not really sure who's going to be that wide receiver that really steps up for the Longhorns. And I'd love to see Bijan Robinson really control the clock and make this a difficult game for them in terms of time possession. But unfortunately, Alabama even has run stoppers. So you can't even establish a good running game against them. Ewers is going to be running for his life. James, if there was any chance of an upset, how would the Longhorns have to do it?
Man, I think the only thing you can really do is just pray that Bijan can capitalize on the offense, and any slight mistake you can get out of Bama, you can then capitalize on. Otherwise, I don't think there's much of a case to be had. I don't see it defensively for Texas. I just think Bryce Young is going to come in and steamroll.
From the Alabama side, I would want to see how many turnovers they have, because if you're looking for a formula for how do you beat Alabama, historically, the best Alabama teams have been beaten in those games like last year against Auburn, where Bryce Young throws 4 interceptions in the game or 3 interceptions, and Alabama does it to themselves. It's not a game where you win a shootout, except for that one weird time that Ole Miss went into Alabama and scored 40 points on them. But other than that, it's basically Alabama only scores 17 points and you find a way to win it at the end, because I think the Alabama defense, if you take out the Georgia championship game in the regular season, once in the last 2 years, they've allowed more than 20 points in a game. So the way to win is with defense. And obviously, I don't know a ton about the Texas defense going into this game. I know that they have this prolific offense and 5 stars up and down, at least at wide receiver and running back and quarterback. And they have a couple good offensive linemen who might be NFL guys. So defensively, I think the hope is that they can force turnovers and Alabama makes the mistakes that at least give them an opportunity to cover. Because it's going to take like 3, 4, 5 weird Alabama mistakes to actually swing the tide of the game. That's just a byproduct of being a 3-touchdown underdog and deserving to be a 3-touchdown underdog.
Okay, so we've all kind of like said that this is just going to be an insurmountable mountain for the Longhorns, but do they cover?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, and then I'm going to say UTSA beats them next week too.
Wow.
That would be fantastic. In terms of whether they'll cover, you know what? Maybe.
Backdoor, something along those lines.
Maybe they will.
Some stats I'll just throw in here towards the end. Obviously, it's about containing Bryce Young, the Heisman candidate. And against top 50 defenses last year, Bryce Young was averaging over 300 yards a game. Against top 25 teams in general, he has 157 passer rating. So there's just not a lot to really love. But one thing I will want to watch from this week in terms of knowing what this team's going to be like, you mentioned you don't really know much about the defense. And I think that that's a sentiment echoed by everyone who watches and covers the Longhorns. It's because ULM, you had no idea whether or not that was actually defensive improvement or it was just playing a really bad team. Playing Bama, that's going to show you exactly where your defense is. Again, you know what the offense is going to give you because you have Quinn, you have Xavier, and then you have Bijan. So those are 3 talented pieces right there. Knowing what you have from this defense that was low effort, had no intensity last year is what Texas Longhorns fans want. I'm going to keep an eye on that. James, having thrown the UTSA thing there at the end, just how dare you? How dare you?
I've seen multiple paths. I saw people like talking about it where it'd be like, it would be hilarious if like they beat Bama and like, yeah, let's go. And then UTSA steams them the next week.
It wouldn't be unnatural with the pattern we saw last year where they were feeling themselves after the ULM game and then Arkansas punches them in the mouth and then they just go on a tailspin. So
a tailspin that involved losing to Kansas, who hadn't won a Pac-12 road game since 2008. You mean that tailspin?
Well, I would find it hard for them to win a Pac-12 road.
Big 12 game. They'll all be give it 2 years. They'll all be the same conference.
That might be the case. That might very well be the case.
Yeah. For Texas's standpoint, we talked about this last week. Texas getting 8 wins would be a successful season. It doesn't matter how you get the 8 wins, just get the 8 wins, and you can at least convince yourself that this is a building point and not 2 years from now Sark is going to get fired and you'll still be broke and trying to pay 3 different coaches buyouts.
Get this win, though, and you can change the expectations forever. Undefeated, going to the national championship. Woo! Texas back. Let's get it. Right? No?
1% chance.
1% chance. I'll take it. All right, guys, you probably noticed this segment's a little different, not just Kyle and I, but we also joined by a guest, James from Boda. James, we need you to drop all the obligatory plugs. That way people know where to find you.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. You can find us everywhere at Boda Sports, BOTA. Instagram, TikTok is the biggest ones. There's also a Twitter, but it's really not worth them. I'm going to be 500% honest about it. Yeah, you can find all of our stuff everywhere just by searching Boda Sports.
Okay, guys, find that below in the bio. Leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel from Juju Talk Sports and Kyle Ledbetter. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.